The Galactic Council chamber was a place of awe and power. It floated in the void above the shimmering gas giant, a giant oval of light and crystal, large enough to hold thousands of alien species from across the galaxy. Tentacles, scales, wings, and crystalline forms of every imaginable kind moved with purpose, discussing trade disputes, territorial claims, and the endless wars of a galaxy that never slept. Yet today, even among centuries of hardened politicians and warriors, an unusual tension pulsed through the room. The whispers began quietly, almost like a ripple. "Have you heard about Earth's real name?" One diplomat hissed to another. "It is said to hold a force beyond understanding." Most delegates ignored the statement. Earth was known, yes, but only as a minor planet on the outskirts of the Orion Arm. It had resources, a breathable atmosphere, and a small population. Humans were primitive compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. Their ships were slow, their weapons rudimentary, and their understanding of space travel crude. For most, Earth was an insignificant dot, not worth more than a passing note in the council records. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and whispers, once started, do not fade easily. The first delegate to mention it formally was a slender, multi-eyed being from the planet Korath. "Reports of unusual human achievements are increasing," it said, its many eyes blinking rapidly. Ships surviving storms of neutron radiation, humans negotiating conflicts with lethal species, and surviving encounters with predators that should have destroyed them. There is something unnatural about their survival. A hum of skepticism rolled through the chamber. One massive delegate from the warlike species Vargan laughed, a deep rumbling sound that shook the floor. "Unnatural?" it bellowed. "They are weak. They should have been gone centuries ago. You speak of survival." "As though it were a superpower. That is absurd. We have species that conquer worlds in a day." But the whispers would not die. The Korath delegate continued, presenting fragmented intelligence. Humans had created fleets that outsmarted technologically superior opponents. Their colonies on harsh worlds, ones that could not support most known life, were thriving. And even when attacked, humans adapted, survived, and returned stronger. "Perhaps," a small, delicate delegate from the planet Lyra suggested, her voice melodic and soft, "they have some secret, a hidden technology, a weapon, or something worse." Her words were careful, cautious. She did not dare voice her fear aloud, but her tone carried it clearly. The term Earth's real name was mentioned again, now openly. Scholars who studied human history and language exchanged nervous glances. Few had ever seen the name written down. Humans themselves never spoke it outside their world. Some said it was not a word at all, but a concept, a power, a reflection of their spirit and survival. Rumors spread through the council like wildfire. Some believed Earth possessed a weapon that could destroy entire fleets with a single strike. Others whispered of psychic abilities, perhaps a collective consciousness that could manipulate matter, energy, or even other species' minds. The debate became heated. Most council members were unaccustomed to the idea of a species so seemingly small being so dangerous. They were used to power measured in ships, weapons, fleets, and armies. Humans did not fit this measurement. Meanwhile, on Earth, things were quiet. Cities bustled. People went about their daily lives, unaware that their planet was about to be scrutinized by thousands of alien eyes. Humans had always lived with challenges. Their world was not peaceful. Storms, disease, famine, and internal conflicts were constant tests. Yet humans survived, thrived, and adapted. It was this adaptability, their ability to endure and innovate, that had become the galaxy's most feared mystery. The council decided action was necessary. They could not simply ignore a planet that might hold unknown power. A fleet was assembled, massive and intimidating. Thousands of ships of all shapes and sizes, bristling with energy weapons, cloaking devices, and shields strong enough to survive supernova shockwaves, would travel to Earth. Not to destroy, at least not yet, but to demand answers. Back on Earth, the first alerts came from satellites and early warning systems. Strange objects were approaching from the outer system. Military command centers were immediately activated, but alongside the generals and admirals were scientists, diplomats, and civilian leaders. Humans had long predicted that one day they would be noticed, and when that day came, they knew that fighting alone would not be enough. Intelligence, creativity, and diplomacy would be their true weapons. The first encounter occurred in orbit. Alien ships, massive and gleaming, filled the sky above Earth. Humans stared at the ships not in fear, but with careful calculation. Each craft was unlike any human vessel, moving with impossible speed and coordination. And yet, humans noticed patterns. Nothing in the galaxy was completely random, and humans were masters of observation. When the alien envoys attempted to communicate, humans responded cautiously, using universal translation protocols. The council delegates expected compliance, subservience, perhaps even surrender. Instead, they were met with poise, reason, and calm. Humans did not cower. Humans did not panic. They asked questions, they negotiated, and they observed. In the council chamber, reports began to trickle in. Humans had solved problems that the council considered unsolvable. A small fleet evaded a larger one, not by fighting, but by outsmarting it. Another report showed humans surviving an artificial asteroid storm deployed by the aliens, returning not only intact but with data about the attackers' technology. The council's fear grew. If humans could survive, adapt, and even outmaneuver technologically superior species, then what else could they do? And then, of course, there was the matter of the real name. Some delegates began to whisper nervously to each other. "We underestimated them," one said. "It is not just survival when it is intelligence, strategy, morality. They are unpredictable." Others were more direct. "If they are capable of surviving fleets, weapons, and predators, what happens when they decide to explore further, to take their place among the stars?" The council could not answer. There were no records of a species like this, and no one had predicted this kind of intelligence. Humans did not conquer through force. They conquered through endurance, adaptability, and courage. On Earth, humans were already preparing. Scientists mapped the alien fleet, studying their technology and predicting their movements. Military officers devised plans, but they were not plans of destruction. They were plans of defense, of outsmarting the enemy if necessary, of proving that humans were not to be feared in terms of aggression, but respected for their capability. As the sun rose over Earth's cities and oceans, the council fleet hovered silently. They had come to demand answers, to reveal secrets, to uncover the meaning behind the legend of Earth's real name. Humans watched the fleet. They did not fear it. They understood that the galaxy's curiosity and fear was inevitable. And they knew that when the council discovered the truth, when they realized what humans truly were, it would not be weapons that defined them, but the indomitable spirit of their species. Whispers of the real name continued to spread through the council, growing louder, more fearful. Entire civilizations began speculating. What was Earth hiding? What power could a small blue planet possess that made even the galaxy's strongest fleets pause in uncertainty? The answer, of course, was not technology, not psychic power, not a weapon. It was something far older, far stronger, and far more terrifying in its simplicity: humans themselves. Their intelligence, adaptability, courage, and moral strength made them a species unlike any other. And that strength, that very essence, could not be measured or controlled. The council could send fleets. They could demand answers. They could try to intimidate. But humans were already ready, in ways no one had anticipated. The game had begun, and the galaxy would soon learn a lesson that no one could have predicted. Underestimating humans was the first, and perhaps deadliest, mistake any species could make. The first signs of the council fleet appeared as small blips on Earth's orbital radar. At first they were almost invisible, tiny points of light against the backdrop of stars. But soon, as they drew closer, the ships revealed their true scale. Massive, angular, and bristling with technology beyond human imagination, The alien vessels filled the sky above Earth like an artificial constellation. Military command centers buzzed with activity. Officers shouted orders, lights flashed across consoles, and holographic displays rotated, tracking the movements of each ship. Yet despite the panic that might have gripped any ordinary species, humans remained calm. They had anticipated this moment. They had studied every possible scenario and prepared for it, not through sheer firepower but through strategy, observation, and ingenuity. Admiral Kalen stared at the main display in the Global Defense Command. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the fleet's formations. "They are trying to intimidate us," she said. "But their patterns, there is predictability. We can work with that." Behind her, Lieutenant Rami, a young systems analyst, nodded. "Their ships move in a grid, maintaining constant distances. Their weapons have a delay, about 0.7 seconds between detection and firing. If we time it right, we can evade every shot without touching our shields." Kalen smiled faintly. "Exactly. And remember, they are not here to fight. At least not yet. They are here to probe, to see how we react. That's where humans excel." In orbit, the alien envoys activated their communication systems. A holographic projection shimmered into existence above Earth's largest orbital station. It was a towering, multi-limbed figure, its skin a translucent blue, and its eyes glowing with a soft green light. The envoy's voice echoed in multiple frequencies at once, designed to be understood by all human ears. "We are the Galactic Council," the figure intoned. "You have drawn our attention, Earth. Your survival, your achievements, and your name have caused concern. We demand explanation. Reveal your true capabilities and your real name." On Earth, the response was measured. President Leora stepped forward in the council chamber, surrounded by diplomats, scientists, and a few retired military strategists. "We are ready to speak," she said. "But understand this. Our real name is not a weapon, nor is it a threat. Humans are nothing more and nothing less than ourselves. What you see is what we are." The alien envoy paused. Its glowing eyes seemed to narrow as if considering the meaning of her words. But the calm confidence of the human leaders unsettled it. No species in history had ever responded to the council with such poise, without fear or subservience. While diplomatic channels opened, other humans were already in motion. Fleets of Earth ships, small compared to the council's massive vessels, moved with precision. They were not meant to attack. They were observation, defense, and intelligence gathering. Yet even these modest ships moved with an elegance and timing that surprised the council. Every evasive maneuver, every trajectory correction was calculated to maximize information while minimizing risk. The council fleet watched, confused and wary. Their advanced sensors detected no hidden weapons, no secret shields, no energy surges, nothing that could explain humanity's calm. Yet humans continued to adapt, anticipate, and outmaneuver without any visible effort. One particularly daring alien delegate, a Vargan warrior named Kral, grew impatient. "Show me your strength," it roared, activating a series of pulse cannons, designed to obliterate any ship in the sector. "Reveal your name or suffer the consequences." Admiral Kalen raised her hand, and Rami executed the evasive plan they had practiced thousands of times in simulations. The council's pulse cannons fired, glowing streaks of energy racing toward the human ships. And then, as if dancing, the ships slipped through each blast. Shields did not flare, lasers did not deflect. The humans simply anticipated, moved, and adjusted their course with uncanny precision. Kral's roar became a hiss of confusion. The council had never encountered a species that could react so quickly, so accurately without visible technology to assist them. Some delegates began murmuring among themselves, This is not ordinary. How can a primitive species do this?" Meanwhile, humans in orbit launched probes, gathering data from the council ships. They observed weapon patterns, shield frequencies, energy consumption, and even communication protocols. All of it would be invaluable. Not for destruction, but for understanding. Humans learned best by observation, and knowledge, they believed, was the greatest power of all. In the council chamber, The whispers grew louder. They are not using weapons, yet they survive. How? One delegate asked nervously. What is their secret? The Korath scholar, who had first brought humans to attention, answered with a mixture of awe and caution. It is not technology. It is adaptation, intelligence, coordination. They think faster than we can predict. They do not react with fear. They calculate, anticipate, and adjust. They survive because they are human. Back on Earth, President Leora addressed the envoy once more. You see our fleets, you see our actions. We are not here to conquer or harm, but we will defend ourselves, and we will survive. Our real name is not something to fear, but to understand. The envoy's form flickered. Its voice carried a note of uncertainty. Your words, they are not weapons, yet you display capabilities beyond what our calculations predicted. Explain this anomaly. Admiral Kalen responded directly to the envoy's projection. We are what we have always been. We survive. We adapt. We endure. That is our strength. Not technology alone, not power alone, but the ability to face impossible odds and overcome them. We do not need to frighten you to prove it. The Council fleet began to adjust its position. They were powerful, yes, but humans had introduced unpredictability into the equation. Every tactic the Council tried to intimidate or coerce was met not with aggression, but with clever response. The humans exploited weaknesses in the Council's approach, not by attack but by anticipation. Some Council delegates started whispering of Earth's real name again, with new fear. Perhaps it is not a weapon. Perhaps it is a quality, a principle, a force within them. It cannot be measured by our instruments. It cannot be controlled. That is what terrifies me. The humans on Earth knew this was the effect they sought, though not through deception or aggression. They understood the galaxy feared the unknown. They understood that underestimation could be turned into leverage, and so they continued their measured approach, observation, diplomacy, and demonstration of intelligence. Hours turned into days. The Council fleet remained in orbit, probing and observing. Humans continued their calm, confident response. Reports of human ingenuity and adaptability began reaching other star systems. Entire civilizations began to take notice. Humans, without firing a single aggressive shot, had demonstrated that they were a species to be respected and feared. On Earth, scientists began to share their findings with military strategists and diplomats. They expect fear, Rami said, quietly. They expect us to panic, but we don't. That is why they are confused. They cannot predict us. Admiral Kalen nodded. And that is exactly how humans survive, not by fighting harder, but by thinking smarter, acting faster, and refusing to fear the unknown. They are learning our lesson already. A small group of alien observers, originally sent to intimidate, began whispering among themselves. They are extraordinary. I do not understand. Their minds operate differently. Their logic, their resilience, it defies prediction. By the end of the first week, a fragile tension had settled over the orbital theater. The Council fleet, massive and powerful, remained outside Earth's immediate atmosphere, hesitant to press any further. Humans had shown not weapons but capability, an unpredictable combination of intelligence, coordination, and courage that no Council member could fully calculate. President Leora stood before a global broadcast, addressing not only the aliens in orbit but all of humanity. The galaxy has begun to notice us. They may fear what they do not understand. That is natural, but we are ready, not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of who we are. Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans endure. That is our strength, and that is our message. In the Council chamber, delegates argued, debated, and fretted. The Korath scholar said quietly, "We may have underestimated a species once thought insignificant, and I fear the real name of Earth is not a word or a weapon. It is the human spirit itself, And that may be the most powerful force in the galaxy. Whispers grew to murmurs, murmurs to discussions, discussions to fear. The legend of Earth's real name, already powerful in the Council's imagination, had begun to spread, and the galaxy was listening. Above Earth, the alien fleet lingered, not daring to provoke. Humans moved below, observing, calculating, surviving, and the first stage of a quiet, unstoppable influence had begun, a human influence that relied not on domination but on cleverness, courage, and unshakable resilience. The Council had come to demand answers, and humanity had already begun to provide them, not in words, not in weapons, but in action. The stars above Earth shimmered, and somewhere in the depths of the galaxy, whispers of the real name grew louder, carrying awe, confusion, and fear across light years of space. For the first time, the galaxy realized humans were not what they expected, and that realization would change everything. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so unsettled. Reports from scouts, spies, and observers flooded in from all corners of the galaxy. Humans, once considered a minor species on a quiet planet, were now a force that no one fully understood. Their ships had survived impossible storms. Entire human colonies had thrived in conditions that should have been deadly. And their ability to adapt, learn, and survive left even the most experienced council members uneasy. Some delegates, like the Vargan warrior Kral, still advocated aggression. If they are capable of surviving fleets, storms, and predators, we cannot allow them to expand unchecked, Kral roared, slamming a clawed hand on the council table. They may be small, but their resilience makes them dangerous. But others, especially scholars and diplomats, began to reconsider. The Korith scholar, the first to notice the humans' unusual capabilities, whispered urgently to colleagues. They are not merely dangerous in the conventional sense, they are exceptional. Their survival is not because of weapons or sheer numbers. It is their intelligence, their creativity, and their ability to work together that makes them unpredictable. The Council's debate grew heated. Some feared that humanity's real name, a concept humans themselves never shared, might represent an ability beyond comprehension. Others suggested the human strength lay not in destruction, but in endurance, innovation, and morality. The more the delegates discussed, the more uneasy they became. Meanwhile, humans on Earth continued to observe the Council fleet hovering in orbit. Scientists, diplomats, and military leaders worked together seamlessly. For them, this was not a crisis. It was a test, and humans were excellent at surviving tests. President Leora addressed her council and military leaders in a secure room deep underground. They fear what they do not understand, that is natural. But we are not here to fight, and we are not here to dominate. Our strength lies in who we are. If we show them our values, our spirit, our ingenuity, they will see that humanity cannot be underestimated not by weapons but by character. The humans' approach was deliberate. They demonstrated their capabilities without aggression. Observation satellites charted the Council fleet, recording energy patterns, weapon ranges, shield responses, and communication frequencies. Small fleets moved in calculated maneuvers, not to attack, but to gather intelligence and demonstrate coordination. The Council fleet, watching humans closely, grew more confused and cautious. No species in their history had exhibited this combination of adaptability and calm confidence. They could not predict human behavior with their advanced algorithms or psychic probes. Every action humans took was unexpected yet logical, surprising, but efficient. After several days of observation, the Council called for direct communication. The human delegation activated a holographic projection above Earth's largest orbital station. President Leora stepped forward, flanked by scientists and strategists. "We understand your concerns," she began, her voice calm yet firm. "You have come to demand answers. You seek our real name, but it is not a weapon. It is not technology that can be stolen or destroyed. It is who we are. Humanity survives. Humanity adapts. Humanity endures. That is our strength." The Council envoy's holographic form flickered. Its multicolored eyes glowed brighter, as if trying to comprehend the meaning of her words. "Your words do not match your actions," it said. You survive without extraordinary weapons. You thrive without advanced shields. How is this possible? Admiral Kalen, standing behind Leora, spoke. We do not rely solely on machines or power. We rely on observation, intelligence, and cooperation. We learn from mistakes, adapt to new circumstances, and act together. That is our true strength. The envoy paused. Its voice carried a hint of awe and fear. Your calculations cannot predict your actions. You defy logic. Your survival is anomalous. Humans smiled subtly, knowing that the envoy's fear was growing. They did not need to display weapons or fire a shot. Their mere existence, their intelligence, their calm in the face of overwhelming power, was already reshaping the Council's perception. Reports from scouts on distant worlds confirmed the effect. Across the galaxy, alien species whispered about Earth. They are extraordinary, one scholar from Lyra said. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, yet they survive storms, wars, and predators that would destroy most civilizations. How is this possible? Some factions began advocating diplomacy and alliance with humans, recognizing the value of a species that could think, adapt, and endure. Others remained fearful, convinced that humans might be hiding something, some unknown weapon or power, connected to their real name. On Earth, humans continued to prepare. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, not on weapons of destruction, but on ways to understand the Council fleet, predict its movements, and communicate humanity's values. Military strategists devised contingency plans, but always with the priority of survival and peaceful resolution. One day, an unexpected challenge arrived. A small squadron from the Council fleet attempted a direct assault on one of Earth's orbital stations, testing human defenses. Their lasers cut through the void with deadly precision, designed to destroy any resistance, but humans were ready. Admiral Kalen coordinated the station's defense with astonishing speed. The station's automated systems adjusted trajectories, deployed decoys, and calculated evasive maneuvers in milliseconds. The Council's attack failed completely, leaving the station untouched. Not a single human life was lost. The Council delegates were stunned. They survive not through brute force but through intelligence, Korith whispered. They think faster than our calculations. They anticipate our moves before we make them. That is terrifying. Meanwhile, President Leora addressed the Council through a direct holographic link. You see our actions, she said. We do not hide. We do not attack unnecessarily. We survive because we work together, we think ahead, and we adapt. That is what humans are. If you wish to understand our real name, you must look beyond weapons and fleets. You must look at the essence of who we are. Some council members began to reconsider their approach. Perhaps their real name is not a secret to steal, one diplomat suggested. Perhaps it is a principle, a quality, something within them. That would explain their unpredictable capabilities. Others were not convinced. If it is a principle, Krall growled, then it is dangerous. A species that survives by courage, intelligence, and cooperation cannot be controlled. We may have underestimated them, and that is the greatest threat of all. Meanwhile, humans continued to act in ordinary ways. Trade ships moved supplies. Research vessels explored nearby asteroid fields. Communication satellites broadcast peaceful messages to distant star systems. Every act was normal, yet every act was watched, analyzed, and feared by the Council. Humans had demonstrated without aggression that they were not to be underestimated. The Korith scholar, observing the humans' behavior, muttered to a colleague, "They are extraordinary not because of weapons, but because they survive against impossible odds. Their intelligence, cooperation, and moral strength, it cannot be measured by our instruments. It cannot be predicted. That is their true power." Across the galaxy, whispers of Earth's real name spread. The legend grew with every report. Entire civilizations began to fear not humans' weapons or numbers, but their adaptability and ingenuity. Humans had not conquered, they had simply survived, and that survival alone made them a force the galaxy could not ignore. President Leora convened a meeting with scientists and strategists on Earth. They fear us because they do not understand us, she said. That fear is natural, but it is also our opportunity. We can show them that humanity is a species to respect, not to fear. Not through weapons, but through action, intelligence, and cooperation. And so humans continued. They moved, adapted, and observed. Every challenge from the Council fleet was met with clever solutions, not aggression. Every attempt to intimidate was met with calm calculation. And every demonstration of skill and ingenuity reinforced the Council's growing realization. Humans were not ordinary. They were unique. By the end of this stage, the Council was divided. Some wanted to ally with humans, to learn from them and cooperate. Others wanted to contain them, fearful of what a species so unpredictable and resilient might do if left unchecked. And through it all, humans remained steady. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They simply acted as they always had, observing, learning, surviving, and enduring. The real name of Earth, still a mystery to all but humans themselves, had become a symbol, not of destruction, not of hidden weapons, but of the human spirit. Intelligence, courage, cooperation, and adaptability. That spirit had already begun to inspire awe and fear across the galaxy. In the council chamber, the whispers had become discussions, the discussions had become debates, and the debates had become fear. If what they represent is true, one delegate said, trembling, then this species cannot be measured, cannot be controlled, and perhaps should not be challenged. Above Earth, the council fleet lingered, cautious and uncertain. Humans moved below, observing, calculating, and preparing. They had not fired a single shot, yet their presence, their actions, and their spirit had already reshaped the galaxy's perception. For the first time, the Council realized that humans were not to be underestimated, and the legend of Earth's real name had begun to ripple across the galaxy, carried by scouts, traders, and even travelers who had glimpsed the humans' unusual resilience. The Council fleet lingered near Earth, hesitant to push further, while distant civilizations whispered in awe and apprehension. Humans had not fired a weapon, yet their presence alone was enough to command attention, respect, and fear. In the Galactic Council, debate had reached a boiling point. Some factions, impressed by human ingenuity and moral strength, called for diplomacy and alliances. They argued that humans were a species worth learning from, a species that could elevate the galaxy through cooperation. Others, however, could not shake the sense of danger. They survive where others fail, the Vargankral growled during a session. They anticipate threats before we even consider them. They are not just a minor species, they are unpredictable, uncontainable. That is what terrifies me. And their real name, it is a symbol of a force we cannot control. The whispers grew louder, reaching alien worlds beyond the Council's direct oversight. Traders in the Orion trade network hesitated to conduct business with humans, fearing what they could unleash if provoked. Scientists from distant systems studied Earth remotely, desperate to understand how a species so technologically simple could display such strategic brilliance. On Earth, life continued as usual, though humans were acutely aware of the galaxy's growing interest. Scientists monitored the Council fleet, diplomats communicated cautiously, and military strategists prepared contingency plans. Yet there was no panic. Humans had always thrived under pressure. President Leora convened a council of Earth's top minds. They fear us because they cannot predict us, she said. But fear does not have to lead to conflict. We can use this to encourage understanding, to show that humanity is not a threat but an ally. We survive because of intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. That is our strength, and it must guide every action we take. Admiral Kalin added, we can show restraint and cleverness. If they attempt aggression, we respond strategically. If they seek diplomacy, we offer insight. Our actions must reflect who we are, not just what they fear. The humans' approach was deliberate. Small exploration vessels ventured beyond the solar system, carefully observing alien worlds. Their missions were non-aggressive, gathering information, mapping resources, and establishing communication with distant civilizations. Each act was measured, calculated, and yet impossible to ignore. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched. Some misinterpreted human restraint as weakness, only to be proven wrong when humans anticipated hazards, avoided ambushes, and solved problems that other species considered impossible. One fleet, sent to test human ships in a simulated battle, returned humiliated. Humans had not fired a single shot. Instead, they had outmaneuvered, outthought, and outlasted their opponents, demonstrating strategic genius that could not be matched by brute force. In the council chamber, debates grew, more frantic. If they are capable of surviving fleets and cosmic hazards without advanced technology, a delegate from Lyra whispered nervously, then what else might they do if challenged? How can we ensure our safety? The Korath scholar spoke again, quietly but firmly. Their real name is not a weapon. It is not technology. It is something far older, far more enduring. It is the human spirit, their intelligence, their courage, their adaptability, their moral code. That is what terrifies the galaxy. That is why every species hesitates before confronting them. Alien leaders across distant star systems were feeling the same unease. Traders refused to risk encounters with human ships. Scientists debated whether Earth should be studied for cooperation or containment. Even warlike species paused their campaigns, uncertain of how humans would react. Back on Earth, humans continued their careful expansion of influence. They offered assistance to nearby planets suffering from natural disasters. They provided insights to civilizations struggling with internal conflict. They demonstrated technologies for resource management, environmental stability, and safe space travel. No species was coerced, no weapons deployed. Yet humans' actions reshaped perceptions. One incident became legendary in interstellar communication channels. A small colony on the edge of the Orion Arm faced extinction from a collapsing asteroid belt. Humans, aware through observation satellites, devised a plan using minimal resources, redirecting small asteroids with calculated gravitational tugs, establishing temporary shielding domes, and coordinating local defenses. The colony survived completely intact. News of this spread rapidly. Aliens began to understand that humans did not need massive fleets or destructive weapons to influence outcomes. Their intelligence, foresight, and moral courage allowed them to achieve what others could only dream of. The real name, whispered, in fear across star systems, became synonymous with ingenuity and survival. The Council fleet continued its orbit, but their tone had changed. The envoy that had first demanded answers now hesitated before each communication. Humans responded with patience, offering transparency without revealing unnecessary secrets. Their calm confidence frustrated some delegates and unnerved others. Kral, the Vargan warrior, could not conceal his fear. They do not attack, they do not dominate, yet they control outcomes far beyond their size. That is dangerous. They are extraordinary. Even some skeptics began to admit grudging respect. Perhaps we should approach them as partners rather than adversaries, one diplomat suggested. Their real name is not a weapon, but a force. And forces like that cannot be destroyed, only understood. On Earth, humans remained aware of their impact. Scientists and leaders discussed the subtle influence their actions were having across the galaxy. They fear us, Rami said. Not because we fight, but because we survive. That fear is a tool, if we use it wisely. President Leora nodded. Fear can be transformed into respect, understanding, and cooperation. That is what we must strive for. We show the galaxy our strength through action, not aggression. Our real name is our spirit. That is what they must learn. Weeks turned into months. Humans quietly expanded trade networks, scientific exchanges, and humanitarian missions. Everywhere they went, they demonstrated intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability. The galaxy responded, not with open hostility, but with caution, curiosity, and sometimes awe. Some council members tried to pressure Earth, attempting covert operations to uncover the real name. Humans anticipated each move, countering with minimal interference, ensuring no harm came to others while maintaining their position. The Council's fear grew. Every failed attempt to manipulate humans reinforced the legend of their real name, spreading fear further. Even in distant war zones, humans' reputation had an effect. Ships hesitated before attacking systems rumored to have human presence. Leaders delayed decisions, calculating whether human intervention might turn the tide. The real name had become a shadow in strategy rooms across star systems, a symbol of unpredictability, resilience, and intelligence that no one could control, invite. The council chamber, whispers became debates, and debates became fear. They are not our enemies, one scholar said quietly. Yet they are not like any species we have ever encountered. They survive where others fail. Their real name is not a secret weapon, it is who they are. And that is formidable. Korath scholar nodded. It is a lesson we all must learn. Underestimate humans at your own peril. On Earth, humans observed the growing ripples of influence with calm determination. They had not sought power, nor domination, nor fear. They had only acted as humans always had, surviving, adapting, and enduring. Yet through their actions, the galaxy was learning a lesson that no fleet, no weapon, and no council could teach. True strength does not come from fear, aggression, or conquest. It comes from intelligence, courage, cooperation, and the will to endure. President Leora addressed Earth's population in a broadcast visible across the solar system. We do not seek to rule, to dominate, or to frighten. We act because it is our nature to survive, to help, to endure. Our real name is not a weapon, but our spirit. And if the galaxy listens, it will learn that strength comes from character, not destruction. The stars above Earth shimmered quietly, and across the galaxy, civilizations hesitated. Traders paused their journeys, scientists debated their strategies, and even warlike species delayed their campaigns. Fear had spread. Not fear of death, but fear of a species that could survive, adapt, and thrive where others failed. And through it all, humans remained calm, observing, calculating, and enduring. They had not sought this influence. It had arisen, naturally from who they were. Yet now the galaxy had begun to understand. Humans were extraordinary. Their real name, symbolizing intelligence, resilience, and morality, was no secret to themselves. But to the galaxy, it was a force that inspired awe, respect, and fear alike. The legend of Earth's real name had spread further than any weapon or fleet ever could. And humans, quietly acting as they always had, were changing the galaxy, not through conquest, but through the simple, unyielding strength of their spirit. For the first time in centuries, the Council realized a hard truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. They could not be controlled. They could not be predicted. And their influence, subtle as it might appear, was already reshaping the decisions, strategies. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than it had ever been. Whispers had been replaced by careful deliberation. Reports from scouts, traders, and diplomats painted a single, undeniable truth. Humans were extraordinary, not through weapons or numbers, but through intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The legend of Earth's real name had spread across the stars, inspiring awe and fear, respect and caution. Council delegates from thousands of species sat in tense silence. The Korath scholar, who had first brought humanity to their attention, rose to speak. We have spent centuries measuring power in fleets, weapons, and armies, yet we find a species that survives, adapts, and thrives beyond our calculations. Their real name is not a tool or a weapon. It is their spirit, intelligence, courage, and cooperation. That is their true power. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates nodded, others frowned, but all understood the weight of the words. The Vargan warrior Krall remained uneasy, slamming a clawed hand against the table. If what you say is true, then humans cannot be controlled. They cannot be contained. And that terrifies me. Across the galaxy, the same fear echoed. Worlds that had once ignored Earth now watched carefully. Star systems paused military exercises. Trade negotiations were delayed, and scientists debated how to approach a species that could not be underestimated. Humans had not fired a shot, yet they had changed the galaxy's perception simply by being who they were. On Earth, humans continued their normal lives. Scientists mapped distant systems, engineers improved space travel, and explorers ventured into uncharted regions. Their actions were deliberate, cautious, and cooperative. They had no desire for conquest. They had no hunger for domination. Their strength lay in their resilience, intelligence, and moral courage. President Leora addressed the Council fleet once more through a holographic projection. "We understand your concern. You fear what you do not understand, but we are not your enemies. We are humans. Our real name is not a weapon. It is who we are. Intelligence, courage, and cooperation. These are our strengths, and they are not to be feared but respected." The envoy flickered. Its multicolored eyes glowed brightly, and for the first time a note of respect entered its voice. "You do not seek to dominate, yet your presence affects the galaxy more than any fleet. Explain this phenomenon." Admiral Kalen stepped forward. "We act as humans have always acted. We survive, we adapt, and we endure. Our influence is not measured in destruction, but in action, intelligence, and cooperation. That is what the galaxy sees. That is what they fear, and that is what they must respect." The council chamber debated long into the galactic night. Finally, a consensus emerged. Humans were to be acknowledged as a species of remarkable capability, deserving respect and inclusion. A resolution was passed. Earth would be granted an official seat on the Galactic Council, not as a token, but as an autonomous, respected member, recognized for its intelligence, moral strength, and resilience. Humans accepted cautiously. President Leora addressed the council. "We do not seek power for its own sake. We do not seek domination. We will share knowledge, offer cooperation, and uphold peace. Our strength is not in weapons, but in character. That is the value we bring." The council delegates nodded, some still with apprehension, others with awe. Across the galaxy, news of Earth's acknowledgement spread. Entire civilizations reconsidered their perception of humans. Where once they had seen a minor species, they now saw a species capable of reshaping events without firing a shot. In orbit, the Council fleet lingered one last time before departing. Humans had proven their capability through intelligence, strategy, and moral courage. Their calm, calculated actions had prevented aggression, minimized risk, and demonstrated that true power was not in fear or destruction, but in resilience, cooperation, and ingenuity. On distant worlds, alien leaders debated what they had witnessed. Scholars studied human society, analyzing art, music, stories, and history. What they found was astonishing. Humans faced impossible odds for millennia and survived. Their societies thrived on creativity, adaptability, and moral codes that prioritized cooperation and courage. The real name, once whispered with fear, became a symbol of hope, inspiration, and the extraordinary potential of a species united by purpose. Meanwhile, humans continued quietly. Explorers charted new star systems, scientists discovered innovative ways to manage resources, and diplomats opened peaceful dialogues with alien civilizations. Every action reinforced the lesson the galaxy had learned. Intelligence, courage, and cooperation were more powerful than fleets or weapons. Back on Earth, President Leora addressed her people in a broadcast viewed across the planet. "The galaxy has recognized us not for what we destroy, but for what we create, for how we survive, and for who we are. Our real name is not a weapon, but the spirit of humanity, and that spirit will guide us as we step forward into the stars." Admiral Kalen watched the Council fleet depart, a sense of relief mixed with pride in her chest. "We didn't have to fight," she said quietly to Rami. "They saw who we are, and that was enough." Rami nodded. "Humans have always survived, by thinking, by cooperating, and by enduring. The galaxy may fear us, but they will also respect us. That is the power of being human." and the galaxy listened. The real name of Earth had become more than a whisper. It was a legend. It represented a species that had turned fear into respect, caution into admiration, and uncertainty into awe. Across countless star systems, civilizations began to reconsider their own approaches, inspired by the example of humans. Even warlike species paused their campaigns, reconsidering strategies. Traders ventured into new routes, inspired by human ingenuity. Scientists collaborated across worlds, studying human philosophy, morality, and problem-solving. The influence of humans spread, not through force but through example. On Earth, life continued. Children played under the sunlight, unaware of the cosmic reputation their species had earned. Scientists calculated trajectories, engineers built better ships, and diplomats prepared for careful, peaceful negotiations with distant civilizations. Humanity's influence had grown quietly, yet powerfully, without domination or violence. President Leora stood on the balcony of the Global Council building looking at the stars. "Our real name is not something we hide," she said softly. "It is who we are, and now the galaxy has begun to understand that." In the council chamber, delegates finally admitted the truth. Humans were extraordinary, not because of weapons or conquest, but because of resilience, intelligence, courage, and cooperation. The species had changed the galaxy's perception forever. Whispers of Earth's real name continued to spread across star systems. Some spoke of fear, some of admiration, and some of inspiration. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Underestimate humans at your own peril. Their true power was not visible in fleets or weapons. It was in their spirit, their ingenuity, and their ability to survive and thrive against impossible odds. And somewhere in the quiet of space, the stars shimmered as humans prepared for the future. They would continue to explore, to learn, and to endure. They would continue to face challenges, adapt, and cooperate. And in doing so, they would ensure that their real name, the essence of humanity, remained a force of awe and inspiration across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had learned what humans had always known. True power is not about domination. True power is about intelligence, courage, and moral strength. It is about surviving, adapting, and thriving in ways that no one else can predict. Humans had shown the galaxy that being human was enough.